That was absolutely not a common Bengals W, but unfortunately, what we saw is becoming all too common. What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp. This is Common Bengals W for November 17th, 2023, after the Bengals lost by 2 touchdowns to the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football, away game, but they lost much more than that. Cam Taylor-Britt hurt day to day, supposedly. You had Trey Hendrickson coming off of a hyperextension. He still played. Who knows how he's feeling? T. Higgins was not in the game. And the Cincinnati Bengals lose Joe Burrow for the year again. We got a lot to talk about now. We got a lot to talk about the game, about the injury, about so much that's going on right now that is going to unfold with the Cincinnati Bengals moving forward. Sad boy Sean right now. So Joe Burrow injures his wrist, tore a ligament that will require surgery, and he will be forced to miss the remainder of the season. This is the second time in his career he has gone down for a season-ending injury before Thanksgiving, the first being his rookie season. It is very unfortunate. I say this as a season ticket holder. I will be a season ticket holder as long as these teams aren't going like 1-16, I'm going to be a season ticket holder. Joe Burrow is injury prone. He has never, ever had a full off season, and who knows if he will now to get ready. The first season there was COVID. The second season he had the ACL tear, which is very unfortunate. The third season he had the ruptured appendix. This season he had the calf issue that lingered into the season. Got the Bengals off to a slow start, and now he has a wrist injury. And it's not anybody's fault. It's not his fault. It's not an insult that he's injury prone. Lots of people are injury. I'm injury prone. It's just the unfortunate reality that we experience right now with Joe Burrow. The Baltimore Ravens experience it with Lamar Jackson. Incredible player, injury prone. It sucks. I hate it. You look at the AFC North right now, Deshaun Watson out for the year, Joe Burrow out for the year. Lamar Jackson has been injury prone in the past. Looked a little banged up last night, but they got a good team, so I think they're going to do well. Lots of QBs out for the year. Anthony Richardson, Aaron Rodgers, but Joe Burrow, man, it sucks. It's a real bummer. It is it's one of those things that you look at and you go, well, you know what? Is there more than meets the eye? And that's what the NFL is doing right now. So I got into it with a former Chiefs lineman of all things. And this is something that I had noticed because Mike Florio noticed it yesterday morning. I watched the segment of his show where he previewed the Cincinnati Bengals and the Ravens game. And he noticed the shot of Joe Burrow getting off the plane. And they said, this is something to monitor. Joe Burrow has this wrist wrap. And he brought it up 12 hours before the game. So this was something on the radar of many people. Then Joe Burrow hurts that wrist. Now, he wasn't listed on the injury report, but you got to remember, this is a Thursday game. They're basically doing walkthroughs for practice. Of course, he's not limited in practice. But as gambling becomes more ingrained in the NFL, by the way, use Bet Online, about to be my new partner, this type of thing is going to be scrutinized more. Joe Burrow claimed that it was just a compression sleeve. Zach Taylor said it had nothing to do with it. Well, it looks awfully suspicious when people notice it and it gets deleted from social media. That doesn't usually happen by accident, right? Now, I'm not saying that there's like some grand conspiracy at play. Maybe it is all just a miraculous coincidence. It's possible, sure. But you got to understand in this situation why people would side-eye. They go, what's going on there? So Joe Burrow injures his wrist. The unfortunate reality is that he is injury prone. We don't know how intense this surgery is going to be. We don't know what this is going to lead to. We don't know if, this is something it's a bummer. He'll be good in January, but what's the point in January? You know what I mean? You don't know if it's like that or if it's something where it'll carry over into like April, May. Will it carry into like OTAs and stuff like that? We don't have the answer to that yet. But the Cincinnati Bengals are 5-5, and they faced a historic uphill battle, even get from 5-5, getting to the playoffs. So the playoff hopes are dashed. It ain't happening. They're not going to the playoffs. And in reality, after signing Burrow to the type of contract that he signed, which has a massive guarantee, it's not an element of, well, let's see what we got in Jake Browning. We don't know what the hell we got in Jake Browning. We know he was better than Trevor Siemian in the preseason because a lot of people said, go out and get a starter or a backup QB with some experience starting in the league and winning in the league to back up Burrow. And they did make that effort with Siemian, but Jake Browning beat him out for that job fair and square. And then they went out and they got A.J. McCarron, who, experienced some success in Cincinnati years ago, went to the XFL, had an awful lot of experience there. So they're going to have him. He'll be the backup now. The Bengals will have to go out and get a third quarterback, but it's after the trade deadline. They can't go out and bring in Andy Dalton. I would love to see Andy Dalton just out there slinging passes for Burrow in this time. I wouldn't mind it. I would love to see that reunion. I would love to see that. Ain't going to happen unless something crazy happens. So Burrow's out for the year. By the end of this year, he'll have missed 14 games if you count this half game, the half game he missed with, the knee injury. 14 games, that's damn close to a full season through, what is it, 3 or 4? That's rough, man. That's rough. Keep him in a bubble. I want this guy to have a full training camp next year. A full training camp. I don't know what the Bengals need to do to ensure that, but they better ensure that. And next year, what type of team is Joe Burrow coming back to? Tyler Boyd's probably not going to be there. T. Higgins likely will, but we have seen numerous times in the past that franchise tagging a player isn't necessarily something that always goes well. Sometimes it does. By the way, if you're in the live chat, drop us a message. Frantic World says, what's up, SRS in chat? Sad news for Joe Burrow. Hope he gets better soon. I do too. And you always see those people that are like, karma for. Listen, if you're poking fun at a few fans, I don't mind that. But don't ever celebrate somebody's injury. I don't care like who it is. Don't celebrate the injury. So next year, Joe Burrow comes back. What's that team look like? Is Joe Mixon still around? He's playing for his job right now. Had a good showing last night. Carried the team on his back very early on. But now we're looking at Jake Browning. Jake Browning not only is trying to get some experience here, which last night it was okay. He had some good runs. I'll give him credit for that. Jake Browning had some good runs. Looked like he was having some fun out there. He was 8 of 14. That's not ideal, right? 8 of 14, not ideal, not terrible. 4.5, 4.5 per, or I think it was like 5 yards per. But that's what's going to happen when Zach Taylor draws up those bubble screens and those swing passes and the line of scrimmage throws and all that. But Jake Browning had 4 carries for 40 yards. Like he was finding it. The Bengals on the ground yesterday looked very good. They had 136 rushing yards. They averaged 6 yards a carry. Joe Mixon, 16 carries for 69 yards. In addition to that, Joe Mixon had 5 receptions for 31 yards. So Joe Mixon was doing his damn job. They only found Jamar Chase twice for 12 yards, but the quarterback situation around the Bengals is going to be particularly interesting because, hear me out, they're not, I don't think they're going 5-11 here or 5-12 here. I don't think that's happening. Cincinnati Bengals have 4 home games left. one of which is to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who keep winning somehow. I don't know how the hell they keep winning, but they do. That's going to be an ugly ass game. But Jake Browning, who threw for 57%, ran a little bit, he's going to have time to prepare for this game. If he pulls off a win, that will be a very feel-good moment for the Bengals. The Bengals have the Indianapolis Colts, backup QB. The Bengals have the Cleveland Browns, backup QB. And they got the Vikings, backup QB, who's playing like a tier 1 starter right now. But, these games, at least for Bengals fans, you look at and you go, you know what? There's at least a snowball's chance in hell that they win. there's at least, some sliver of opportunity. Gardner Minshew, he started in the NFL. PJ, well, no, they're starting a rookie. The Browns are. So who knows how that'll go. But Jake Browning very much is playing to ensure that he is on the roster next year. Because the reality of the situation is next year, the Bengals might be looking at somebody a lot better. They might be looking at a Dalton. They might be looking at a Carson Wentz. They might be looking at somebody who, if Burrow does get hurt again, which is very likely and almost expected at this point, they can slide them in and say, okay, maybe you can win a couple games for us. Do they have the cap to do that? You make the cap to do that. You draft effectively. You let Jesse Bates go. DJ Reader's probably gone. Tyler Boyd's probably gone. You cut Lyle Collins. You do that shit for a reason, right? So A.J. McCarron and Jake Browning, they will have to bring in a third one, but the playoff hopes are gone. They're long gone. Long gone. I think that Bengals will make Joe Burrow train a lot for a full season after he gets better. I think Frantic World that they will certainly look into preventative measures to see why it is that this stuff keeps happening. Damon says, celebrating injuries is a dick move. Yes, it is. Greatest of all time says, do the QBs get enough protection from the officials? Yeah, I think they do. I think that the way that things are now, I don't think this is an officials thing. I don't think it's an NFL thing. Maybe it's a Thursday night thing. But I think that the NFL and the officials and really ownership has done a really good job of protecting those asset quarterbacks. Like, I can't sit there and say that they don't. Burrow doesn't get a lot of those calls for whatever reason. Wish he did get a lot of the calls that were ticky-tacky on other people, but that doesn't happen. But if you're a Bengals season ticket holder, at least you can look at those 4 games. Pittsburgh is somehow, I don't know how they're good, but you know what? They leave the door open all the time. Colts, backup QB. Browns, backup QB. Vikings, backup QB. Although Josh Dobbs playing his ass off, Bengals did beat him earlier this year, even though it was with Joe Burrow. So, as I mentioned, playoff hopes are gone. I don't think they are going to lose every game. We got some chats here, by the way. Cody James says, Joe Burrow is reminding me of Stafford when he was in Detroit. Great QB, but just gets hurt. In Detroit, Stafford was called China Doll Stafford. Hope you're all right, Sean. I'm good. I mean, listen, am I bummed? I am super bummed, but I am in a wonderful position in life where I get to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals in this cool little studio. Tonight, I'm going to be breaking some scoops about pro wrestling. Tomorrow night, I'm getting paid to watch pro wrestling. Sunday, I'm going to be on the Stairmaster at the gym watching football. And then next weekend, I get to travel to a cool wrestling convention, fly back, go to the Bengals Steelers game with my wife, take the day off. It's entertainment. That's I have learned to not live and die on it. Am I much happier during the football season? Oh, hell yeah, I am. I think you all can tell if you're wrestling fans. I don't give nearly as much breath to idiocy on Twitter during football season because I have that thing that is truly my escape. Maybe this year, Kentucky Wildcats basketball is going to have to be my escape a little bit more than Cincinnati Bengals football, but I love football, man. I really love it, and it's a bummer, but I'm okay. I'm alright. My feelings aren't hurt, not really. Greg Cherry says, "Good is arguable for the Steelers. They win games, but they're not good." Well, listen, I don't care how it happens, Greg. It's slip on a banana peel. Hopefully, don't tear an ACL doing that. The refs give it to you. Whatever. A win is a win. I'll take those wins. I don't care how it happens. Gift us a Super Bowl. Doesn't matter to me. I've got a lot of respect for Mike Tomlin because Mike Tomlin always turns out winners. Somehow, Mike Tomlin always turns out winners. I even posted that tweet, like, I just want the Steelers to be bad one year. Their bad is 9-8. I would love for that to be our bad. I was excited that the Reds went 82-80. Ah. Cody says, to quote YouTuber, urinating tree, the Steelers have high-end talent bullshit. Yeah, you're right. Greg Cherry, a good friend of the show, also says, sorry to hear about Burrow, Sean. Hope his injury heals fully. Fantastic QB. The NFL is better off with him in the game. They're better off with all the top QBs, all the top players in the game. And unfortunately, one of the top players in the game, Mark Andrews, is not going to be in the game. But I thought that the discussion, especially from Bart Scott, about the hip drop, and even Harbaugh saying, was that necessary in that situation? Well, yeah, it was very necessary in that situation to do a hip drop. I don't think he was trying to break Mark Andrews' ankle. He was trying to prevent a first down and a likely touchdown. Is it necessary in this situation? Yes, the Bengals finishing a tackle is necessary in every situation because they stink at it. They're horrible at it. So I hated that. It's very rare when I look at a player and I'm like, dirty, objectively dirty. We had one of those dirty players a few years ago. I still cringe whenever I see somebody wear a Vontaze Burfict jersey. Guy played dirty. We had a dirty player. And I'm glad he's not there anymore. I'm glad they moved on past him. Logan Wilson is not dirty. I'll tell you something dirty that I've noticed too on Bengals Twitter. So I did a separate Twitter because, man, listen, if you guys follow me on Twitter, you've seen some of the BS I deal with. But I got the Bengals Twitter, and I was like, it'll be less toxic, especially to media. And I see the way that Kelsey Conway is treated. Holy shit. Now, I'm in media in a completely different field, so I can sympathize with this a little bit. She has said many things that I disagree with. Many things that I disagree with. In fact, she said something that I thought was asinine yesterday. She said, don't want to speculate, but sounded like he said, I broke it. Well, that was speculating, Kelsey. However, you go to the replies of any one of her tweets, and it is the most gross bullshit. And I'll say, why are you guys talking about this? And they'll go, she's not a reporter. She's an op. She doesn't work for the Bengals. She is a reporter. She is also free to have her own opinions. You can complain about the play calling. You can complain about the coaching, but she can't because she's a reporter. And if she says that, she's an op. Y'all don't know what ops are. And ops aren't reporters. And even if she was, who gives a shit? Mute her and move it on. Who could possibly care? Y'all are weird. Go listen to somebody else. There's a lot of great people covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Dave Lapham, James Rapine, Jake Lisco, Mo Egger. There's so many good people. Ben Baby, there's so many good people covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Stop harassing people. So let's talk about the game itself. There were some absolutely horrible calls in this game. Some horrible calls. There were two really terrible pass interference calls on the Bengals, including one that just did not exist. Didn't exist. And it put points on the board for the Ravens. At least 4 points. So if they scored 34, they probably should have had 31. Bengals should have probably had 23. So it should have been about an 8-point game when all was said and done. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I think they ended up getting the touchdown anyway. But that one where the Zay Flowers TD came back too, that was horrible too. That was really bad too. Make these calls reviewable. Make these calls reviewable from somewhere else, from New York. Have them call it in immediately. Let them make the decision. Woof. Terrible clock management from the Bengals. A lot of penalties, some of which shouldn't have happened, but bad clock management, some delay of games, timeouts that were used when they shouldn't have needed used. Tanner Hudson, come back, buddy. Tanner Hudson is welcome on this team. Whew. Tanner Hudson is real good, and I like him. And he took the job from Irv Smith. He took the job from Irv Smith. That guy's getting paid like $500,000 a year this year. And now he's got 18 receptions and 22 targets in 5 games. His high, or actually his career totals were 15 career receptions. And he's already passed that. He has ingrained himself on this team. Dude's already got his ring. He got that with Tampa a couple years ago. He had one target. He was mainly blocking with Brady, I think it was. But his catch percentage is 81.8%. This is what the Cincinnati Bengals were missing the first few games of the season. What the Cincinnati Bengals were missing the first few games of the season was a Hayden Hurst who could catch these quick passes that Joe Burrow was being forced to make because of his calf injury out of shotgun. They weren't getting that out of Irv Smith. I feel like they could have got that out of Tanner Hudson. An 81.8% catch percentage from one of the most accurate QBs in the history of the game in general, even though I know a lot of that is because of those line of scrimmage passes, is something you have to value. And I believe that Tanner Hudson, Irv Smith, and Drew Sample have shown the last 3 games for the Cincinnati Bengals, if any positive can be drawn from that, is that the Bengals need to value tight end. Now, when I say that, I don't think that means that they need to spend a lot of money on a tight end. I've said this time and time again. I think the Bengals' method of tight end will be, would you like to make $1 million here this year and $6 to $8 million somewhere else next year? And that's okay. But right now, you've got Tanner Hudson. Right now, you've got a guy catching the ball 81% of the time. Need to keep him. I also think they need to keep Trenton Irwin because Trenton Irwin always delivers. I can't imagine he's going to cost that much unless somebody is going to overpay for him, but he's a great guy to have on the team. He always works his ass off. He does not take plays off, and he always picks up the slack for anybody else. He is so reliable. Really love him. I mentioned that Mixon basically playing for his job. He put the team on his back offensively. Receptions on the ground, and he's going to get a lot of opportunities to put that team on his back through the remaining games of the season. The next 7 games, there's going to be a lot of Joe Mixon. Probably going to be a lot of Travion Williams. There's probably going to be probably going to bring some other people into the fold as well there. Joe Mixon played really, really well. And Joe Mixon, if he continues to play well, might find himself back on this team next year to finish out that run. Evan McPherson's job isn't in jeopardy or anything, but unfortunately, Money Mac isn't Money Mac anymore. And that sucks because he was so automatic a few years ago. But he's in no fear of or danger of losing his job or anything. But unfortunately, the Bengals have left an awful lot of points on the board because Money Mac isn't as money as he used to be. Oh, boy. I talked about Tanner Hudson effectively, taking Irv Smith's top spot. Jordan Battle took Nick Scott's spot. That is Jordan Battle's job now. Jordan Battle played his ass off. He did great. And I really liked what I saw out of Jordan Battle. And we're going to need to see more of the guys that they need to get reps to find out if they're any good, like Cam Taylor-Britt, who has turned into one of their best offensive or best defensive players. Last year, he got to show that late in the season when Chidobe Awuzie got hurt. I doubt Awuzie's coming back. He's not the same. He's not the same. But Jordan Battle, 12 total tackles, 10 solo tackles. That was fantastic. Dax Hill was getting it done as well. But I'd be lying if I sat there and said, gee, you know what, man? I paid an awful lot of attention to what happened after the Burrow play. Mike Hilton played well. I thought Trey Hendrickson, for what he went through, got a sack as well. The Bengals got to Lamar pretty well. I'll tell you something that was a pleasant surprise after that first drive, especially. The Bengals weren't biting on a lot of fakes, jukes, or anything like that. They were going right at Lamar, and they said, where you're standing is where we're going. And that's how we're going to make that tackle. And that's something they haven't really done this season. And that's why the Bengals have an abysmal defense. So next season, there's a lot of stuff that has to get rectified. I mentioned the bipolar Bengals defense, the bipolar Bengals defense, the bipolar Bengals front office. They knew they needed some improvements. And if the Bengals would have made a couple of improvements on defense, and if they would have had a more solid backup QB, I think we could be in a position where the Bengals would be 6-3 going into last night, but they would be 2-3 wins away from having a winning season, which I don't think is out of the realm of the possibility. Being super optimistic about facing backup QBs along the way. Bengals are also facing teams that are all 500 or better. Play calling's got to change. It is not aggressive enough for the level of talent that the Bengals have on the field. Now, what they're losing on the field is pretty significant over the next year or so. The tight end position has to be valued, even again, if it's not spending a lot of money, it's drawing up plays for them. The offensive line athleticism, I saw a graphic where there were, a bunch of teams that were like right around the middle. There was one that was kind of low, and then way beyond that was the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals have spent over $40 million in total on the offensive line, but from a starting perspective, over 38.5. They lose Jonah Williams next year. They are not getting better there. The players that they have on the offensive line, Cordell Volson is not going to make a leap, and the older guys that they have are not going to get better. They go down one starter, and they still are going to be paying $34 million. Jonah Williams, I think, has played pretty well, and they're losing him. He's probably going to try to find a left tackle job somewhere. Hopefully they can bring him back because I think he's been pretty solid there. But they've got to shore up the offensive line, even if it means evaluating and stripping it completely and saying, let's go back to it. I mean, it's very clear they were willing to do that with La'el Collins. They had him. They cut him. He wasn't going to do anything for him. The defense has to be addressed, especially interior defense. Woof. The secondary, I don't know if it's the secondary is more about getting drills or what, but man, they get diced up so often. So you look at it, the Bengals really need O-line help. Really need O-line help. They really need a good backup quarterback because Joe Burrow is injury prone. And they've got to fix their defense. Joe Burrow can't make the plays if he can't throw the ball. And if he throws the ball and the Bengals score a touchdown, what does it matter if the defense is giving up 7 or at least 3 every time up the field? So defensively, offensive line, and a backup QB that's worth a damn are the 3 focuses I would have in the offseason. Now, hopefully, some of the players the Bengals drafted defensively will sort of come around, but ain't looking hot. I do have confidence that they can keep Irwin, they can keep Higgins with a tag. Some of their high upside players will develop. I think there are some good inroads for next year, but I'd be lying if I looked at it at the same way that I did at the beginning of the year where I went Bengals Super Bowl and then maybe next year Super Bowl, maybe the year after that Super Bowl. No, I think there are a lot of holes in this Bengals team from the play calling to the protection to the defense to the front office being stubborn on assuming that he'll stay healthy, he being Burrow. And it needs fixed. Needs fixed. Cody says the entire AFC North have injury problems, QB injury problems. Still have a tiny bit of hope, Sean. I don't have a tiny bit of hope. I've got a tiny bit of hope that the Bengals can finish with 7 or 8 wins. And I see people say, just throw the games, tank. No, I don't want my team to tank. I want them to always try to win. Injuries are a part of the game. Do they suck? Yes. Do we want them to happen? Of course not. Ops for y'all are the rest of the AFC North, the Bills, the Chiefs. There you go. Steelers don't have injury problems. They just have a terrible QB room. That is also true. Fans, oh boy, a good Thursday night game. Football injury gods. That doesn't work for me, brother. It sucks. It sucks. Project Chocobo says, with how much money y'all spend on the O-line, I'm wondering if your O-line coach is a big part of that problem. Gotta be. They got Ted Karras, Alex Kappa. Cordell Volson was a decent pick, but Jonah Williams, they had Lyle Collins at one point, and Orlando, I think, he had a great block for Mixon, by the way. A wonderful block where he went around the side and opened it up for Mixon. So I'm liking him, but you're going to have to retool an awful lot of stuff. Are the Steelers going to win the division? Tomlin made a deal with the Crossroad Demon. I think it's going to be the Ravens. I think the Ravens sort of set themselves apart here. I don't think the Browns are going to be able to do it. They might sneak into the wild card, and I think the Steelers can't keep this up forever, but they might get in the playoffs too. Guys, I'm bummed, but I just want to say thank you guys for joining me on this stream. Obviously, I wasn't going to do it last night. I've got a wild couple weeks ahead. We've got Collision versus SmackDown tonight on the wrestling side, Full Gear. I got to go to Thanksgiving, North Carolina next weekend. I'm doing dozens of interviews. I'm flying back to Cincy, watching Survivor Series. I'm not excited for that mess. I honestly am dreading all of it. I've got PTSD from covering AEW. I am actually really excited to wrestle Shazza on December 2nd, but not excited about the online reaction and all that stuff. So if I can get through these 3 weeks, I can get through about anything. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me. I'm back next week, my friends. We're out.